They describe themselves as two everyday people. One's a teacher, one works for the government here. But Stephen Coleman and Alan Fall from Jersey have both had tough times when it comes to their mental health.
You're towards the end of it while still dealing with it day in, day out. And I think
I'll never get rid of it. Never.
Yeah. And that's the important thing, isn't it? I don't think there will be an end for me. The way that I deal with my mental health is having that awareness. You know, being able to sort of spot the things that might cause things to spike, or even just having an awareness of the fact that I might feel a little bit lower today, because you can then sort of approach things in a different way.
Well, they're now going to be talking openly, both of them, about their experiences for a new podcast called This Is Me that's out this week. That was a little bit from it there. They hope it'll help people. And listening to the first episode myself, the sort of taster episode that's already out there, it sounds like it's going to help them to understand their own mental health a bit better too. Morning to you both. Thank you for joining me this morning. So, Stephen, let's start with you. You opened up about your mental health for an online campaign a couple of years ago, and that's sort of where this is all started from, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I helped create the campaign for government where we had 6 islanders, which was included myself, talk about our experiences with mental health.
And so what did you get out of doing that, and how big a step was it actually to put yourself in front of the camera?
Well, actually, I wasn't supposed to be doing it. Someone pulled out at the last minute. So my work colleague just asked me if I would be willing to. And I was more than happy to talk about it. I always have been since I experienced my mental health issues. And so, yeah, it was that the whole process was really inspirational. Hearing some of the others talk about their experiences was almost like the first time I'd heard it from completely different backgrounds, but I could still, relate to it quite a lot. And I said in the teaser episode that it's a shame that in this business we can't necessarily use all of the stuff that we capture. We can only use snippets. So with a podcast, you've got a lot more time with people where they can say a lot more.
And do you mind if I ask about your experiences? I know people listening will be able to hear in depth in the first episode that's out, but what's the last sort of 10 years been like for you in terms of your mental health?
So for me, it's been 12 years since I was 18. I first experienced anxiety and depression. The first episode should be dropping now, I hope. So I'd go into a lot more detail. But yeah, it's just been on and off anxiety and depression for myself, which a lot of people don't realise, because I'm very, I'd say I come across very happy all the time, but no one truly knows anyone behind closed doors. And I admit that I put a front on all the time.
And so what was it for you when you were 18 that made you think, I don't feel like I used to, maybe, or things don't feel quite right?
So I was actually away in California when I left college and went straight to California to live for 4 months as a football coach. And during the time there, I got involved in things I probably shouldn't have. And it sort of just started from there. I started to abuse my body a little bit, and my body sort of shouted back.
And so then how did that sort of manifest itself then in terms of your mental health then? Because we often think of mind and body being separate, or at least I think we used to, but now we're all learning how deeply connected they are.
Yeah, it was quite a sharp incline from anxiety to depression. So I was away from home and was struggling big time, and there was no support apart from on the end of the phone. That support was sometimes in bed because the time differences. I just felt just completely by myself. And the depression just got more and more and more, and to the point where my mum actually booked me a flight back about 2 weeks before I was meant to come back. And from there, it was a pretty dark journey for quite a long period.
And of course, as you say, you'll go into the details in the podcast, but you've obviously felt like it's important to share this. And I know that you and Alan, morning Alan, by the way, you a friend, is that right? You know, that it feels like safe to be able to share together. Is that part of why you wanted to do it as a two rather than just you, Stephen?
Yeah, I'll jump in on that one, really. So the reason that I'm involved, I think, is that Stephen is one of a number of people within my life who, through speaking out, has encouraged me to do the same. I think I'm in a very different place than Stephen is in relation to my mental health, in that I am still sort of learning to understand what it is that I'm sort of coping with and how best to deal with that. I'd use the same terms that Stephen has in that I'm dealing with depression and anxiety on a day-to-day basis. But whereas Stephen and others in my life are able to sort of verbalise that and talk about that with sort of knowledge and experience, I'm on a journey to learn more about that myself. So I think my involvement is partly in thanks to Stephen because of the sort of role he's played in getting me to speak out a little bit, but also to just explore this a little bit more together.
Yeah. And so in that then, has it been, have you been... how do we say it? Are you? Is it going to be easy for you? Because I think it's quite difficult, isn't it, sometimes to be really sort of raw and vulnerable and honest about how you're feeling. Because you're a teacher, it's a small island. How easy is it going to be for you both to talk about these things? That's the point, isn't it? People haven't because maybe it hasn't been, but you obviously feel like you can.
Yeah, I think we've recorded 2 full episodes now. Stephen's is literally available right this minute, I think. I think if you listen to those when they are both out, you'll see the difference between us. I think, I went into my episode literally with notes written down, which I sort of bumbled my way through and tried to, as best I can, verbalise the things that I've experienced and what I'm doing now to try and receive the support I need to better understand it and cope with it. I think, and I won't speak for Stephen, I'm sure he'll jump in a second, Stephen is at a point in his experience where he is sort of really conscious of the experience that he's gone through and is maybe better able to understand that and verbalise that.
But isn't that in itself, quite special that you are at different stages? Because there will be people who maybe have thought, no, I'm fine, and will listen maybe to what you're experiencing, Alan, and go, well, hang on, actually, maybe I'm not then, because I really identify with that. I suppose that's what makes this kind of smart, isn't it? Because it's somebody who's a bit further down the track and somebody who's still learning, right?
Yeah, I think that was almost like a happy accident. I think when Stephen approached me about the podcast, I don't know that I'd really properly considered the sort of process that I'd need to go through to be able to talk about it a bit more. So yeah, you're right. If listening to me try to understand it a little bit more will help somebody else to just engage and think about their own mental health, and that in itself will be doing a job. I can probably say that it was 5 or 6 years ago that I started to realise I wasn't something quite right. And then even then it took me a year and a bit to start to even try to address that, and then several more years to really seek the support that I need.
And what sort of support are you getting?
So I'm receiving counselling. So I'm going through Mind Jersey, who have been fantastic. I self-referred, and then we're set up with somebody who I see at the moment every couple of weeks. That support at the moment is just trying to get a better understanding, in particular, of the anxiety that I sort of go through. Normalizing that, so understanding that anxiety is a normal part of day-to-day life, and then trying to identify what triggers that and what I can do to overcome that. I haven't really explored the depression aspect of it too much yet, but the help I'm receiving is certainly helping with the anxiety side of things.
And you feel like you can be open, even though you're still, I don't like the journey word, but you're still sort of working things out.
I use the word journey a lot, to be honest with you. I see this as the starting point to something that hopefully will help me to become better, and something that might help others to engage with their own mental health. I hope that by being open, as difficult as that might be at times, we can just make this a topic that's part of day-to-day conversation. If I went out at the weekend, played football and broke my leg, that would be blatantly obvious to people on Monday and Tuesday. I'll talk about that. I'll tell them about the rehab session I'm going to. So, the idea is that from a mental health perspective, we can do the same.
Yeah. And for you, Stephen, what sort of support have you had in terms of with your mental health, but also with the podcast, with people's reaction to the fact that this is what you're going to be doing, the two of you?
So in terms of support, I mean, I started my journey, as if we're going to use the word, back when I was 18, and I did CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, which helped me a lot. It taught me a lot of the stuff that I use every single day now that keeps me on the straight and narrow, basically. And still today, I have sessions pretty much every other week. And I sort of, if you want to stay healthy, you go to the gym. For me as well, I need to do something for my brain. So, I call him the brain man. I'll go every 2 weeks and I'll just have my session, and it feels like a massive weight just talking about some of the stuff that could cause my anxieties and my depression. So, that's the sort of support I'm getting at the moment. In terms of the podcast, since I've mentioned it, the feedback's been brilliant. I mean, we released the teaser, and the messages that we've been getting have been amazing. It makes it so worthwhile when you hear that people are able to relate, and they're saying, I can't wait for the first episode. I can't wait to hear Alan's story. And it just makes it all worth it.
And you hope to speak to people as well. Obviously you're both sharing your experiences first, but then it's to sort of open out the conversation. That's the hope.
Yeah, we've got a few guests lined up, and we hope to cover a variety of different mental health. We've got anxiety and depression. We're looking at PTSD, what's it? Eating disorders.
All sorts.
Yeah.
We want to cover everything, because these are the go-to. It seems to be anxiety and depression seem to be the ones that everybody goes to when you think of mental health, but that's not necessarily the case. There's a lot more out there,
and hopefully get professionals on as well. We've said in all of the episodes we've recorded so far that we are not experts. We are two people who have experienced and gone through this. We are not people who can provide huge amounts of advice for people, other than to sort of seek support and talk about things. So hopefully we can get people on who can just sort of pass on some tips as to how best to deal with those things.
Yeah, that's important to say. I've got one question for you as well, one final question. I feel like we could do a whole podcast here, and that's the beauty, isn't it? You've got so much space to really explore stuff. Stephen, you call Alan Egg. I need to know why, because that's going to come up, isn't it, in the podcast?
I don't even know why. It was one of those things at football. People have nicknames, they stick. And then eventually you find out their real name and you're shocked. And then you ask about the reason why they're called Egg. And it's not good enough.
I do know why I'm called Egg. So years and years and years ago, I shaved my hair off for charity. So I raised a load of money for Jersey Hospice. That was around about Easter, whichever year it was. And then it wasn't until my hair had grown back that one of my friends, Sam Delahaye, I think it was, who turned around and said, "You sort of look like an egg, didn't you?" And from that moment on, it stuck. There are people who I've played football with who do not know what my real name is. In fact, one of my coaches tried to play Egg and Alan Fall in the same team. He wrote his lineup, and Egg was on one side, Alan Fall was on the other. So that's where it came from. There are some people who will better know me as Egg than Alan Fall.
Brilliant. He doesn't look like an Alan, does he? He looks like an egg. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time this morning. I think we could have spoken for a lot longer, but it really gives us a flavour of what to expect. That was Stephen Coleman and Alan Fall, aka Egg. They mentioned it in the podcast. I had to ask. The This Is Me podcast, which hopes to get people talking about their mental health in Jersey, is out now. The very first episode you can listen on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts and on YouTube. And details of organisations offering information and support with mental health are available. If any of those things that we've been talking about there ring true for you, at bbc.co.uk/actionline.